Shabbat Shalom. This is a beautiful time of the year with spring in increasing bloom, and it's after Pesach, and next week is a very happy occasion on the Jewish calendar, Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day, but this Shabbat, one day after Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Commemoration, Holocaust Remembrance Day, is a solemn day on the calendar. We don't feel it as much here, but if you live in Israel, a siren goes off at 8 in the morning, and everybody in Israel comes to a standstill for 2 minutes. I've been in Israel on more than one occasion when that siren has gone off, and it's powerful when the entire nation stops in that way. But this evening, we will relate to Yom HaShoah in words and in music, as we do each year. Just before the service began, Fanny Fishbein came forward to light 6 candles that you see here, and she will come forward in a moment for the lighting of the Shabbat candles as well. And we asked Fanny, as the daughter of survivors, to perform this sacred task. We begin musically with words of faith that come from the Jewish tradition that were sung even by many as they entered the camps and lost their life, and by others after the war. In our Shabbat prayer book, there's actually a section of songs for this occasion in the back on page 371. And on the top are the words, Ani ma'amin, I believe with perfect faith.
And this melody is the melody of Ghetto Vilna. Ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin, Emuno shema.
a poem, a famous poem by the Israeli poet Avram Shlansky. In the presence of eyes which witnessed the slaughter, which saw the oppression the heart could not bear, and has witnessed the heart that once taught compassion, until the days came to pass that crushed human feeling, I have taken an oath to remember it all, to remember not once to forget not one thing to the last generation, when degradation shall cease, to the last, to its ending, when the rod of instruction shall have come to conclusion. An oath, not in vain passed over the night of terror. An oath, no morning shall see me at flesh pots again. An oath, lest from this we learn nothing. I invite Fanny forward for the kindling of the Shabbat candles. As I mentioned before, the remembrance candles kindled just before the service.
We kindle these lights. We kindle these lights in memory of 6 million Jews murdered by the Nazis and their collaborators. May the memory of the branches be for a blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu
melech ha'olam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu le'hadlik ner
On the same song page, page 371, in the middle, is a song based on one of the famous poems of Hannah Senesh, who came to Israel as a young woman and, as many people know, went back to Europe, to her native Hungary, to attempt to save fellow Jews and perished in that effort. Ashrei HaGafror, blessed is the match.
Ashrei hagafru shenisaf vehetzit levavot. Ashrei halava sheba besitrei levavot. Ashrei halevavot sheyadu lachadol vechavod. Ashrei הגפרור שנשרף והצית להבות.
For our call to worship, the Baruch Hu, page 28, please rise.
La
be seated. There is one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within himself. There is one who leaves the circle of herself and sings the song of her people. There is one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping for the highest perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures, with all worlds, filling the universe with song. Nivarech, let us bless. We join together in the Shema, page 34.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Our setting for Micha Mocha this evening and for the Hashkivenu after that are a little bit different than usual. Did you want to say anything about the
That's by
composer?
Lazar Weiner, who's bringing it to us from Ukraine.
Ukraine.
And you know the melody.
Oh, we did. Okay.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוספלית, נורא תהילות, מלכות, חותך
Hashkivenu prayer on page 42 asks that we lie down in peace and rise up to life renewed, something that we take for granted, but we think on this occasion of so many for whom that was a challenge or an impossibility. Kachko, I know that is a famous cantorial family. Is this by the great Kachko or the granddaughter?
That's the great Kachko, and that's the old Nusach that was sung everywhere in the Getaot, in the concentration camps as well.
The one we're doing now.
Yeah.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו שומרינו לחיים, ופרוס עלינו סוכות שלומך, ותקננו בעצה טובה מלפניך, והשינו למען שמך. והגן בעדינו, והסיר
You can almost feel yourself being transported to Europe and to the European cantorial tradition when you hear a melody like that. As many of you know, we have two members of the congregation who survived the war, and one of them, Kurt Roberg, is about to celebrate his 98th birthday, and he's old enough to remember going to his synagogue in Germany. Once in a while, he'll tell me, that melody reminds me of a melody I heard 80 years ago, and I'm going to ask him about this Hashkivenu prayer as well. We continue with our Shabbat Amidah, Tefillah prayer, page 46. Please rise.
Adonai
Sifatai titahu fiyah b'tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
Baruch
atah Adonai, Eloheinu,
Elohei Avotenu ve'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אלינו, גומר חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופך עולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לישני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדום אליו, מלך מביט ומחייב, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחייב הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללו חסלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. Before the service, the Cantor was telling me how Yom HaShoah is so challenging for her and her family. And she said each year she has a conversation with her grandmother, who's 92? Almost 92 in Israel. And Iris's grandmother was orphaned very early on and survived the war in part by fleeing to the woods and the partisans. We have read and heard stories like that before. And the Partisan Song is on page 372. It's a well-known song that is sung in its original Yiddish.
I will do it in all three languages and bring it to English so we'll actually understand. Yep.
אל נא תאמר הנה דרכי האחרונה, את יום היום הסתירו verschwinden mit dem Feind. Noch heute voll zusammen wird die Zum in dem Kajor. Wie a Parol so gehst das Lied von Dor zu Dor. Nur heute voll zusammen wird die Zum in dem Kajor. Wie a Parol so gehst das Lied von Dor zu Dor. This song is written with our blood and not with lead. It's not the sweet song of a bird flying overhead, but was a people with walls falling all around, who sang this song and held their guns and stood their ground. But was a people with walls falling all around, who sang this song and held their guns and stood their ground. Don't ever say that you are on your final way. Those skies of land obscure the sunny days. The all we've waited for so long is drawing near. When our steps will thunder out, we are here. The all we've waited for so long is drawing near. When our steps will thunder out, we are here.
Our thoughts turn now to healing, and the healing that we wish for all of our loved ones, for all those who bear old scars or newer wounds. We think in our immediate congregational family this evening of Pearl Waxman, Fred Cohen, and Maren Friedman, who just underwent surgery on Wednesday. So we join together in Mishaberach.
משברך אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב. משברך אמותינו, שרה רבקה ורחל. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. משברך אבותינו, אברהם, יצחק ויעקב. משברך אמותינו, שרה רבקה ורחל. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the vision for tomorrow. Help us to reach out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way, show us the way. משברך אבותינו, משברך אמותינו,
Somewhat appropriately, the Torah portion that corresponds with Yom HaShoah this year is called Aharimot, which means after the death. And it's referring in the Torah to the tragic death of Aaron's two sons, two of his four sons. The Torah portion says, Vayidom Aharon, and in the face of this tragedy, Aaron was simply silent. Sometimes words fail us, especially in the wake of tragic occurrences. We know that we have a duty to respond with our voices to combat evil, to speak up when we see wrong being committed. But in the face of tragedy, words are often insufficient. We also now pause for a moment of silence, and after that, another famous song from Hannah Senesh, Eli, Eli. Last week I came across a letter, an op-ed piece written by a high school junior that was published in the Los Angeles Times with the title, "At my high school, the Holocaust is barely taught in history class. That scares me." It was a powerful piece by a high school student. I shared it with Kurt Roberg, and I shared it with my confirmation class this past Sunday. Gabrielle Ascoli is a junior at Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology in Alexandria, Virginia, which you might know is one of the top-ranked high schools in the country. So we're talking about an elite school. Gabrielle makes several points, and I quote from his letter. First, he says, "My generation is the last one that will be able to talk to Holocaust survivors and people who experienced life in Nazi Europe. As this crucial connection to the Holocaust fades, so will our collective memory of it. When there are no more living survivors, Holocaust denialism will become easier and more mainstream." That's a powerful paragraph right there. Now, if you think about it, the war began 83 years ago. It ended 77 years ago. So even if you were a soldier at the end of the war, 77 plus 18, and you see that the veterans of World War II are now in their mid-90s or above. But even the survivors who were old enough to really remember what happened, let's say 10 years old, you can see that they also are in their mid-80s or older today. So it is true that in another 10 to 20 years, that is why Gabriel can write that his is the last generation who will be able to talk to survivors and veterans face to face. And the consequences of that he writes about. Then he continues, "I'm a junior in high school, and my formal education on this topic has consisted of one slide with a brief depiction of concentration camps and a short worksheet. If this is all I've been taught, it's no surprise that Holocaust knowledge nationwide is severely lacking." Now, this does vary according to state and locality. And I know that New Jersey has a certain mandated curriculum. I'm not fully conversant with the content of that curriculum, but I did ask my confirmation class high schoolers at the beginning of class to write down some of the key facts of history they've learned, and it was sparse. It was not considerable. And it may be that my students who are only freshmen and sophomores may not have received the full instruction that they'll get as juniors and seniors. I don't know about that. But here is a student coming from an elite school talking about the minimum amount of education. And he goes on to say, "I've heard so little about the Holocaust during my years in school that if I didn't have an intimate personal connection to it through a grandfather, I could easily put it in the back of my mind. My 10th grade history class in Virginia spent weeks elaborating on the way of life in ancient Mesopotamia and less than a day on the Holocaust. It's hard to fathom," he writes. He said, "Virginia requires 4 years of high school history, And World History 2 is the only course that touches on the Holocaust. State guidelines for the teaching of world history include teaching 61 broad topics. One of them folds the Holocaust into a subcategory of examples of genocide in the 21st century. It's not enough, he writes. Such gaps in the Holocaust education make me afraid. I'm afraid that the collective ignorance and ongoing hatred of Jews will grow into something so much more. And it makes me fear for my loved ones and myself. I'm afraid that I'm seeing seeds of civil unrest and educators aren't doing enough to stop it. Our young writer also mentions some statistics that almost 1 in 3 Americans, when asked, say that fewer than 2 million people were killed in the Holocaust. And about 1 in 10 aren't sure if the Holocaust actually happened. He quotes another national survey in which 11% of millennials and Gen Z report believing that Jews themselves created the Holocaust. And he writes, to be clear, 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population was murdered. Gabriel ends his essay with this line: we need to make sure the lessons of the Holocaust outlive the last survivors. I'll just end by saying that on this Yom HaShoah, I'm fortunate to have been in a position to do something this year that directly relates to what Gabriel is talking about in my role at JPS. And I'm proud to say that our newest book that just came out in time for Yom HaShoah, but which we hope will be used in history classes in this state and so forth. I showed this book to my confirmation class, America and the Holocaust, a documentary history by Raphael Medoff. This is about one subject only related to the Holocaust, and that is America's role. So certainly a key topic to be taught. I commissioned this book. I looked at what is out there in terms of actual anthologies with text, with images, and even with political cartoons like the one on the cover. You won't be able to fully see it, but it's a picture of the Statue of Liberty holding up a sign, "Keep Out," and at the bottom, a little ship crossing, Jewish refugee ship. The cartoon was actually written in the wake of the case of the USS St. Louis, that famous ship that was turned back, and all 903 of its Jews were returned to Europe, of whom over 800 plus perished in the Holocaust. But it is my hope that states around the country will follow the lead of New Jersey and other states in mandating at least basic Holocaust education curriculum, because Gabrielle is right. Time is running out in terms of hearing the first-person testimony of survivors and veterans themselves, but time is not running out to educate the next generation about the Holocaust. For the Aleinu, as we open the Ark, the bottom of page 282, please rise.
עלינו לשבח לדור ושכינת עוזו בגוהי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל והארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
On this Shabbat, we call to mind in love and reverence those recently taken from our midst. Roz Aidenbaum, friend of Doris White. And on this Shabbat, in love and reverence, the yortzeit of Peter Norley, father of Stuart Norley, and Irving Swire, husband of Roz Swire. As we say each week, and especially meaningful this evening, for all those close to our hearts and for all those for whom there may be no one to say Kaddish, we join in the Kaddish prayer, page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, Be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'hayichon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'gala uv'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam u'lamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnasei, V'yitadar v'yitale v'yithalal shemei d'chudesha b'rechu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata ta'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'hayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom dimrumav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, comfort to all who are bereaved. Amen. Please be seated. A special thanks to the Cantor. This is a particularly difficult service for her, and as usual, she gives heart and soul. Happily, tomorrow morning, we kick off our spring B'nai Mitzvah season, and the first of those, Hannah Rack, becomes a Bat Mitzvah. The Shabbat morning service is at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Religious school at 9 o'clock, and as I mentioned at the beginning, 1 week after Yom HaShoah is Yom HaAtzmaut. And so we will, in a very upbeat fashion, celebrate Israel in words and music exactly 1 week from this evening. You'll also note in the weekly announcements that our bi-monthly book club meeting has been pushed 1 week forward to May 16th, and you're welcome to join us on Zoom. Whether or not you've read all or none of the short stories that are part of the collection, by Nathan Englander for this particular week. We conclude our service with really the third poem by Hannah Senesh that has captured the public's imagination. She was a remarkable woman, a remarkable fighter for Israel, pioneer, but poet as well. And back there on page 371, at the bottom, is her poem, Yesh Kochavim, There Are Stars Up Above. And this setting of her poem is by the contemporary American cantors Jeffrey Klepper and Danny Freelander.
I think that you know it. Please join me.
There were stars up above, so far away we only see their light. Long after the star itself is gone, and so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly through their time with us is gone. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember. יש כוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה, רק כאשר הם עצמם עבדו בינם. יש אנשים שזיו זכרם מאיר, כאשר הם עצמם אינם עוד בתוכנו. אורות אלה המבהיקים בחשכת הליל, הם שמרים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך. הם שמרים לאדם את הדרך. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. We remember as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.